The heavy oak door, ancient and scarred, slammed shut behind me with a final, echoing thud that vibrated through the very floorboards. Not a gentle click, but a deep, resonant boom that seemed to shake the dust from the rafters. Raj hadn't touched it. I was halfway across the cavernous, shadowed entrance hall, my hand still on the banister of the grand, decaying staircase, when it moved. A sudden, violent gust of wind, I told myself, though every window was sealed, every draft blocked. But the air in the house was utterly still, thick with the scent of damp earth and forgotten things. My breath hitched, a cold knot tightening in my stomach. Was I truly alone in this place? Just 3 days earlier, the solicitor had handed me the heavy iron key, its teeth rusted, its bow ornate. "Your great-aunt's will, Mr. Raj," he droned, eyes pitying. "A rather substantial inheritance. The house, Blackwood Manor." He couldn't know, that my own architect's hands, once so confident, now trembled at the thought of any structure. Not since the fire, not since the smoke had billowed from the roof of my own design, taking everything I loved with it. It wasn't empty, it felt waiting. I forced myself to move, my boots scuffing on the threadbare Persian rug that snaked across the hall. What exactly had I walked into? The first night had been innocuous enough. Just the creaks and groans of an old house settling, I'd rationalized, as I'd unpacked a few essentials in the master bedroom. The mattress was surprisingly comfortable, but the wallpaper peeled in ghostly strips, and the dust motes danced in the slivers of moonlight filtering through grimy windows. I'd even managed a few hours of fitful sleep, dreams of flickering flames and suffocating smoke still plaguing me. But then, just before dawn, I heard it. A distinct scratching, like fingernails dragging across wood, coming from the wall beside my head. It was too rhythmic, too deliberate to be a rat. Asterisk scratch. Pause, scratch, scratch. Pause. Asterisk. I sat bolt upright, my heart racing, straining to hear over the frantic pulse in my ears. I told myself it was the house settling, the wind playing tricks, anything but what my gut screamed it might be. Was I losing my mind, just like they'd hinted at the support group? The next day, the unease deepened. I found a small, intricate silver locket on the bedside table. I hadn't brought it. I'd never seen it before. It lay there, gleaming dully in the morning light, utterly out of place amongst the scattered boxes and my own minimalist belongings. Inside, there was no photo, just a faded, brittle lock of hair. Whose hair was it, and how had it appeared there? Nothing. The locket was a solitary enigma, a tangible piece of the inexplicable that refused to fit into any logical framework. I placed it back on the table, convinced my grief was finally manifesting as hallucinations. Or perhaps I was sleepwalking, scattering objects in my waking state. But the feeling that I was being watched, constantly, relentlessly, persisted, making the hairs on my neck stand on end. Later that afternoon, while trying to clear some of the dust from the vast, unused library, I heard a faint, melancholic humming. It was soft, almost imperceptible, like a lullaby sung through a veil of sorrow. I froze, dust cloth in hand, straining my ears. The sound seemed to drift from the upper floors, ethereal and profoundly sad. My mind raced, searching for an explanation. A neighbor. Unlikely, the nearest house was miles away. The wind? No, this was distinctly melodic. I crept out of the library, my footsteps muffled by the thick dust, and started up the main staircase. Each step creaked under my weight, the old wood groaning like a living thing. The humming grew a little louder, leading me towards the long, dark corridor on the second floor. What lay behind that door and who or what was singing? It was tarnished, almost black with age. It wasn't a language I recognized, but the tone was undeniably hostile, filled with a raw, ancient anger. I recoiled, my heart leaping into my throat. This wasn't just an old house. It was something else entirely. Something alive. My architectural training, my reliance on logic and structure, was crumbling around me. Every instinct screamed at me to leave, to get into my car and drive, until this place was nothing but a speck in my rearview mirror. But another, deeper part of me, the part that was still drowning in guilt, felt a perverse pull. This house, with its palpable sorrow, felt strangely familiar, like a reflection of my own internal landscape. Could it be that my grief was attracting this malevolence? The next morning, the locket was gone from the bedside table. In its place, Etched into the dusty surface were three distinct deep gouges, as if something sharp had been dragged across the wood. They formed an almost perfect triangle. This wasn't just about my sanity anymore. Something in this house was playing a deliberate, terrifying game. What did the triangle mean? I spent the next few days not just cleaning, but meticulously examining the house. My architect's eye, a tool I thought I'd lost forever, rekindled with a desperate urgency. I tapped walls, inspected floorboards, traced the patterns of the ornate plasterwork. The house was a labyrinth of hidden spaces and strange inconsistencies. In the dusty pantry, behind a stack of forgotten canning jars, I found a loose brick. Behind it, a small, leather-bound journal. The journal was old, its pages brittle and yellowed, filled with elegant, looping script. It belonged to a woman named Alara, who had lived in the house almost a century ago. It twists our pain into its own sustenance. My own guilt, my own bottomless sorrow, felt like an open wound in that house. There was I just another victim in a long line. Alara's later entries became almost illegible, scrawled in a terrified frenzy. She spoke of trying to escape, of doors locking, windows sealing themselves. The house won't let us leave. One entry shrieked. It craves our misery. This was too close to my own experience. My hands, which had once drawn blueprints for life, now held the testament of a life consumed by this very place. Was this house just a building, or was it a living entity, a predator feeding on the most vulnerable of human emotions? I remembered the fire, the architectural flaws in my own design that had trapped my family inside. The guilt was a physical weight, crushing me daily. Alara's words echoed, "It feeds on our regret." The connection was undeniable, terrifying. This house didn't just contain a malevolent entity, it was a conduit for it, a trap for souls burdened by sorrow and guilt. And I, Raj, the architect of my own destruction, was the perfect prey. But what did it want with me specifically? The humming started again, this time from the attic directly above me. It wasn't melancholic now. It was a low, guttural growl, interspersed with a dry, rustling sound, like withered leaves skittering across a stone floor. The house felt alive, pressing in on me, the walls themselves seeming to breathe. Raj slammed the journal shut, my hands trembling, and stuffed it back behind the loose brick. Raj had to get out. Now. Raj sprinted for the front door, the heavy oak monster that had slammed itself shut just days ago. It wouldn't budge. I pulled, pushed, threw my shoulder against it, the old wood groaning in protest. It was locked, bolted from the inside, though no bolt was visible, no keyhole accessible from my side. Panic clawed at my throat. "Let me out!" I yelled, my voice hoarse, echoing uselessly in the vast hall. I raced to the nearest window, a tall, narrow pane overlooking the overgrown gardens. I tried to force it open, but the sash was jammed, sealed as if painted shut with centuries of accumulated grime. I hammered on the glass with my fist, the impact sending dull aches through my knuckles, but the ancient pane held firm, unyielding. It was like trying to break through solid rock. The house was marking my efforts, each attempt at escape met with an immovable, unseen barrier. There was this what Alara had felt, the absolute, crushing certainty of being trapped. The humming intensified, radiating from every wall, every floorboard, vibrating through the soles of my feet. They were speaking to me, or through me, dredging up images of the fire, the smoke, the desperate faces of my family. "Your fault, Raj," they hissed. "Your design." Raj stumbled back, clutching my head, trying to block out the torment. My architectural eye, the one that saw flaws and weaknesses, was now seeing the house not as a structure, but as a vast, living maw, its very foundations built on the suffering of generations. The house wasn't just preventing my escape, it was actively trying to consume me, piece by agonizing piece. How could I fight a house that fed on my very soul? I found myself drawn to a specific section, an alcove filled with old architectural texts and ledgers related to the manor's construction. Among them, tucked into a crumbling volume on local folklore, was a crudely drawn map of the house, labeled Blackwood Manor, the Weeping Heart. It showed not just the visible rooms, but several hidden chambers, including one marked with the ominous triangle Raj'd seen etched on the bedside table. This secret chamber was located deep within the oldest part of the house, beneath the ground floor, accessible only through a disguised panel in the oldest part of the cellar. Was this entity merely using the house, or was it intrinsically bound to its very structure, a living monument to despair? The cellar entrance was a heavy, bolted trapdoor beneath the kitchen floorboards, hidden beneath a forgotten pantry shelf. The air that wafted up was thick with the smell of damp earth, decay, and something metallic, like old blood. My flashlight beam cut through the gloom, revealing walls slick with moisture, ancient spiderwebs thick as shrouds. This wasn't just a cellar, it was a tomb. My breath plumed in front of me. The humming was deafening here, a low, resonant thrumming that seemed to vibrate from the very bedrock. And amidst them, a constant, insidious drone. Guilt, guilt, guilt. It was targeting me directly. Following the map, I navigated a narrow, twisting corridor, past crumbling wine racks and forgotten barrels. The walls here were rough-hewn stone, crudely stacked, unlike the elegant brickwork of the main house. This section was far older, predating the manor itself. At the end of the corridor, the map indicated the hidden chamber. There, a section of the stone wall looked subtly different, its mortar newer, its surface smoother. A disguised panel. I pressed against it, searching for a seam, a latch. My fingers brushed against a faint indentation, a small, barely perceptible symbol carved into the stone. It was the triangle. My heart pounded. With a surge of adrenaline, I pushed harder, and with a low groan of ancient stone, a section of the wall slid inward, revealing a cramped, pitch-black space beyond. The air that rushed out was dead, stale, and carried a faint, sweet smell like rotten flowers. What was I about to find? The chamber was small, barely big enough to stand in. In the center, on a crudely carved stone pedestal, rested a single, intricately carved wooden box. The humming in the cellar reached a fever pitch, an almost painful shriek that echoed in my skull. The entity was here. It was waiting. I approached the box cautiously, my every nerve screaming at me to turn and run, but my feet felt rooted to the cold stone floor. This was the heart of it, the source. I had to know. The box wasn't locked, merely sealed. Raj took a deep breath, the stale air burning my lungs, and slowly, deliberately lifted the lid. Inside, nestled on a bed of dried, crumbling leaves, was not a relic or a treasure, but a collection of tiny, meticulously crafted wooden figurines. Each one represented a person, carved with incredible detail, their faces contorted in expressions of profound sorrow, regret, or despair. It was me, the architect of sorrow. It was the voice of the house itself, a chorus of all the grief it had ever consumed, woven into a singular, terrifying consciousness. You carry such a heavy burden, such exquisite regret. You are the finest vintage. The figurines in the box seemed to twitch, their wooden faces twisting further, their silent screams palpable. This was not just an entity, it was a collector, a connoisseur of human pain. Raj could feel their hungry presence, their anticipation. The voice continued, a seductive, terrifying lullaby of despair. Your fire, your family, your fault. Oh, the beautiful, burning guilt. It nourishes us. It was feeding on my deepest trauma, growing stronger with every memory, every pang of remorse. I was trapped, utterly, completely trapped in the heart of its domain. The air grew heavy, suffocating, filled with the stench of decay and something else, something cloying and sweet like rotting flowers. Join us. My family is here. They await I. It was trying to break me, to wear me down, to make me surrender my grief to its insatiable hunger. I felt the tiny, grotesque faces of the figurines, their silent suffering. This was its weakness, its connection to the source of its power. If it fed on sorrow, perhaps I could starve it. But how do you starve an entity that feeds on the very essence of your being? How do you fight a house that knows every corner of your soul, every flicker of your guilt?